Morning, everyone. Shall we get going, Roger?
Yeah, very happy to.
Yeah,
Steve.
we've got 25 people on the call, and the good news is, I think, although I'm speaking, they can only see you, not me, which is, I will tell you, and they will tell you, a very, very good thing. So that's the way to leave it. That's absolutely fine. So, morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. And as I say, you have the bonus of not seeing me. Just in case you're wondering, though, I am actually dressed in business attire for a video call. Just in case you're wondering why I'm not being allowed on screen. So welcome to you all. This is the first in our online masterclass events. Kay Johnson G have been running, as you might know, a series of events and lots of communications with clients and contacts since the COVID pandemic hit. And this is the next event in Kay Johnson G helping you and your clients build a better business. Whenever I introduce our masterclass events, I try to make some comments in passing about fire alarms, toilets, and mobiles. The good news is you're all completely in control of those when it's an online event. So that means we don't have anything to worry about. A presenter, as you can see, for the next hour or so is Roger Harrop, who is hopefully who you were expecting. Roger is an expert in business success. He's run a couple of physical masterclasses for Kay Johnson G in the past, two in fact. The former CEO of a very successful multinational and has run companies on 4 continents. We think of over 30,000 business leaders in about 49 countries. Maybe it's 50 after today. I've seen separate country, Manchester. Have seen transformational change as a result of the methods and tools he's shared through his staying in the helicopter approach and seminars, masterclasses. Roger's topic today is, what's your post-pandemic plan? Over to you, Roger.
Thank you. Good morning, all. I think we can drop that picture of that very angry person on the screen now, Richard. Okay, everybody, welcome. For some reason, and bear with us in terms of the technology here, for some reason I can't see all your thumbnails, but maybe we'll work that out in a bit. So I believe you're out there somewhere. So my job today is really to act as a catalyst. My observation is that what we've gone through and we continue to go through from a business point of view, it feels more like revolution than evolution. There's some step changes happening. There's some maybe acceleration of declines of sectors that have now gone much more quickly, and there's some things that have changed permanently. And what I'd like to do is to cover 3 or 3.5 areas, perhaps. And the way I'd like to operate this morning, if we can, is that rather than have me talk the whole time, I'll talk for about 10 minutes on each of those sections, and then really I'd like to throw it open to you to comment, to add to what we've said, so that we get an awful lot out of this from all of us. And the way we're hoping to work that is, if you'd like to speak, if you either physically put your hand up or on the chat, just say, I'd like to speak, then either Richard, who's our invisible admin person this morning, or I will bring you into play. So hopefully that'll work. So, people and practices, markets and companies. I'd like to have a little rant actually about academia and charities. And then finally, I'd really like us at the end of this hour to be talking about your post-pandemic plan. What are you going to do differently now? Because I'm pretty sure the status quo is no longer an option. So let's get moving. Let me firstly see if there's any way I can see all of you and your thumbnails, but it looks as if I I can't. Okay, never mind. I know there's 30 of you out there. So people and practices. The slide can go down now, Richard, thank you. People and practices. First question I would have is 9 to 5 dead? We've all got used now to people working at home. We know that it works. We know we can trust them. I think the stats are that productivity generally of people is better when they're working from home than when they're working in the office, from what we've seen. So does that mean that we are all going to allow people to work at home to some extent permanently from now on? But even those people who are in the office or on our premises, does it need to be 9 to 5? You know, it's the young people, millennials, people generally below the age of 30. It's sort of been said that one of their characteristics is they won't follow rules unless they understand the reasoning behind rules. I was working, I ran a masterclass for a air ambulance charity earlier this year. And when I went along a couple of months previously to meet with the chief executive and her HR director, they were late seeing me, and they came in very sort of flustered and said, apologies for us being late, but we've just had to give a verbal warning to an employee, and it's pretty upsetting. And I sort of said, well, why? Was he or she really bad at their job? No, they said, that's not the point. It's a 24-year-old lady, a 24-year-old woman, and she's actually exceptionally good. She's the last person we want to lose. So I said, so what's the problem? Well, she just won't come into work on time. You know, we have a rule that you start at 9 in the morning, and she just never comes into work on time, and we've now given her a verbal warning. So I asked the question, I said, so why does she need to be in at 9? Well, that's the rule. I said, why? That's the rule. And the only answer I got was, that's the rule. Well, I'm afraid young people don't understand that, and maybe increasingly none of us understand that. If there was going to be a meeting at 9 o'clock, I'm sure she would have been there. So first question for me then is, for all of us, do we now absolutely need to be considering, should we have 9 to 5 in our employment contracts or whatever it might be? There are obviously some people, and if you're in retail, they've got to be there serving the customers. But there's an awful lot of other people where maybe 9 to 5 shouldn't apply, and maybe we're going to have them working from home to some extent as well. So that's one. What about business travel? Are we ever going to travel on business again? As Stephen said, I used to run a PLC, and every year when we did the budgeting, I could not believe the money we spent on flying around the world. It was a ridiculous amount of money. Do we need to do it? Question, have we actually proved to ourselves we don't need to do it, or we certainly don't need to do it as often? We've been having Zoom calls, we've been having virtual meetings, and we seem to have got on okay. Do we, or not? So is business travel going to come back? And are we going to allow it to come back? Because it's our decision. We need to make the decision, how are we going to operate in future? And that naturally leads on to talk about meetings. Again, we seem to be managing with less meetings, I think, than we used to have. So does this now mean that in future we will have less meetings, but when we do have a meeting, let's say a face-to-face meeting, that we plan it better, we run it better, and we make sure that we zip it up at the end and we have actions that we take away? Is that the result of all this, that we're going to have less meetings, but they're going to be really exceptionally valuable meetings? Or will we slip back into our old ways? I think everything I've read of people working from home, on the plus side, they've said, is that I don't get taken into useless meetings that seem to waste my time. Now, maybe that's a bit over the top, but nevertheless, perhaps it's something we need to take on board as the leaders of our companies and our organizations, and make a decision. How are we going to operate in future? Because unless we decide, I don't think anyone else will. In my own area, events and exhibitions, same story in a way. Doing budgets on for companies that I've run, the money that was spent on firstly exhibiting at exhibitions, but also just visiting exhibitions, vast amounts of money. Are we going to do that again? Are we actually going to allow ourselves to spend that sort of money again and allow our people to go to those sort of events again? Or will it be much more selective? Will we, for example, only exhibit if we've got something new to show? Or do we need to exhibit at all? Is the world we're now in one where we don't need to do that sort of thing to show what it is that we are doing or what we've got? We can just use augmented reality and just show it to people that way, digitally. The event industry, as I say, one that I'm involved in, I speak at conferences of vast numbers of people. Are they going to come back once the pandemic's over? So those are just a few questions. And I think something else that I just throw in before asking for your response really is something that I found very impressive looking at businesses throughout this, let's call it a country emergency, is the way different businesses have collaborated. Competitors have collaborated to try and produce ventilation machines, for example. It seems that collaboration and innovation, those two things, we've just shown how good we can be at it over this last 3-4 months. Is that also something that's going to continue? And again, what do we do to try and make sure that continues? So could I now open it up? I say I'd love to be able to see you, and I don't quite understand why I can't see you, but I'd love to open it up to you. And please, anybody, respond to what I've said, disagree with what I said, add to it, whatever. People and practices, what are we going to do differently? Silence. You probably have to unmute yourselves to speak. Could I ask Richard? Richard, can you see everyone? Oh, sorry, Susan Moore has raised her hand. So Susan, please, over to you. And hopefully I'll see you when you speak. Right, let me... No, I can't unmute you. I think you need to unmute yourself, Susan. Bottom left-hand corner, I think. Hang on, I've got it. Allow to talk.
Hey,
Susan,
there
are
we
you
are.
there?
And not only
Okay.
that, not only that, Susan, if you're really up for it, I think you can even turn your video on. But that's entirely up to you.
Well, that might be a tad too much at 9:16 in the morning, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Hi, Susan.
No problem.
Hello, Roger. Hello, Stephen. Yeah, it was just, I agree with a huge amount of what you're saying. We are in a completely different world, and it's how we maximise the potential benefits of that new world. In particular, you know, the 9 to 5, we are, whether we like it or not, in a 24/7 society. So, you know, 9 to 5 was part of the old world for a long time anyway, and maybe this is the shake-up that we needed. I'm not entirely sure how we make agile working, how we make flexible working part of the new world that works for everybody. And when I say that, I've got 3 fabulous adults that I've raised who are between the ages of 21 and 31, and they can do things very efficiently and very fast. So does it even need to be a 35-hour week, a 40-hour week?
Yeah.
Or do we really tap into, hey, if you achieve this and this, and you want to go to the gym at 9 o'clock in the morning, that's your choice. Those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, interesting. Just responding to that, I just remembered I was in Holland a year or two back, and cut a long story short, Microsoft Holland got approval to go wholly to management by objectives and nothing but. And it was a long 2 or 3 year program monitored by university and all the rest. And it was the operations director who was speaking to us. And basically, absolutely everyone's objectives, including the CEOs, are available on the intranet for everyone to see. Everyone knows everyone else's objectives for the year. And more or less, you work from home, you come into the office when you feel like it. It's entirely up to you. And this operations director said, I took my children to school this morning and I still feel guilty about doing it. It doesn't feel right, but that's the way we're working. And the stats are apparently, once this had got in operation after 2 or 3 years, they are the most productive Microsoft site in the world. So, you know, just in terms of payback, it might make sense. But it doesn't work for everyone, perhaps. So he made the point that they did lose a number of people just because they couldn't deal with that way of working, and having no, as it were, daily structure, I suppose, would be the way to put it.
Yeah.
Anyone else, please, with a comment or something to add? Okay. Oh, Richard. I can see Richard Pallett's picture.
Hello, Roger.
How are you, Richard?
I'm very well.
Richard and I used to work together before, I don't know, one of the wars, I think, Richard, wasn't it?
Very long time ago. You're wearing better than I am, Roger. No, it's interesting. It's very good to see you again. All my background has been in manufacturing ever since I left DCE. So I've gone right through different sectors. I've set up a business, as I think I mentioned to you before, which I've recently sold. I'm now at a bit of a loose end. But one of the things I was thinking, the business I set up was selling into the construction industry. If different companies set up different methods of working and their customers have a different setup, the communications could be a problem between, you know, different set buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
That in itself could be an issue. You know, particularly in manufacturing, you have people who come into a shop floor and they're doing their jobs. Then you've got all the sales departments, all the functions that support that manufacturing. I can see sales, marketing could be flexible, but certain departments would have to be oriented towards the factory. If you're on a 3-shift system, then that's not so bad. But if you're only on a single shift, so
yeah, I'm sure you're right.
I like the idea of flexible working, but I can only see it working if the buyers and sellers have got a similar sort of system, if you like.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right, Richard, and certainly there must be a whole number of jobs where there is no question they have got to work the time. As you say, if you're working a shift system in a factory, you need the people there to do it. In retail, you need the people there to deal with in high street retail, to deal with the customers. So I'm sure you're right about that. It's all the others, I suppose, where we've just got, this is our opportunity really to think about whether we want to do the rest differently.
Yeah.
And it certainly isn't one size fits all. I'm sure you're right. Could I ask, it's Ben Gross with us from Electric Circus. Ben Gross? No? Yes, he is. Ben, so could I just ask you, I think you're a design agency. How about you? Does it matter about people coming into the office, A, at all, or B, sometimes?
For us, when we were all at home, it worked really well. And everyone really cracked on. We were against working from home before this. But now we like it.
Really,
now,
you've flipped 180 degrees. Wow.
Yeah, but now we're all going. Now it's a hybrid. It's becoming a bit trickier, you know, knowing when people are in and trying to book meetings. But it's workable and it's still good. And people have definitely got a lot of freedom. We found it's worked better with the staff that we've had a long time, rather than.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes. Yes, very interesting.
They're just embedded in the culture a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Ben. Okay, guys, let's that's fascinating. Thank you. Let me move on to the next section, if I may. Then, so markets and companies. There've been winners and losers out there, haven't there? And some are really obvious. Anything that's online, you know, they've gone like a train. Amazon has gone absolutely berserk. And on the losers side, airlines, aerospace, aeroplanes, airports, anything with the word air in front, I think, has really been suffering. Who else has been suffering? High street retail. Well, high street retail, I think, was on a slippery slope anyway. I think that's just gone much more quickly as a result of this. I think I was reading that online grocery sales have gone up from, is it 8% to 16 or 22%, and is that ever going to come back again? So anything to do with online certainly has gone well. And I guess the context for this, from my point of view, is, you know, there's a golden rule of business: sell to people who've got money. If your traditional customers haven't got any money, don't try and sell to them. And I'm afraid the way salespeople generally are built is that's exactly what they do. They keep banging their head against a brick wall in terms of their traditional customers. And with what we've gone through over these last 4 or 5 months, I think that is more the case now than ever. So my context here is all of us, and I mean absolutely all of us, need to be prospecting, i.e. knocking on the doors of people who we perhaps have never done business with before, probably 2, 3 times more often than we ever did pre-pandemic. But the question is, whose door should we knock on? So the winners and the losers, we want to knock on the door of the winners. I've been following a company for some time that's kept under the radar, but is suddenly now in the press. The Hut Group, based in Manchester. It's retail, it's online retail, started by one guy, Mark Moulding. Bigger than Marks and Spencer's, 5,500 people. This year, they've increased from 5,500 to 7,000, and the plan is next year to go to 10,000 people. And the reason they're now suddenly on everyone's radar is they're going through an IPO, or they're just about to start an IPO, a 4.5 billion IPO. They've got money. If you're going to knock on anyone's door, knock on their door rather than Marks and Spencer's door, I would argue. Private schools apparently have got parents desperate to send their children to them. So they've suddenly got money, maybe. Bicycle sales, 2.4 million bicycles were sold in the lockdown. Here in the village I live in, Oxfordshire, a guy, very fortunate, he set up about 3 weeks prior to the lockdown, he set up a bicycle repair shop. I was speaking to him the other day, and his feet haven't touched the ground. He has never been so busy in all his life, and he's just spending all his time selling some second-hand bicycles, but mainly repairing them. So anything to do with that side, they've got money. One I hadn't thought of till I saw it the other day was some motor insurers. They've got money because they haven't been paying out because we haven't been using our motor cars up until recently. And I'm sure that list can go on. And in fact, my business partner in South Africa and I have got an ongoing list, which you're very welcome to have access to, of the ups and the downs that we see. On the downside, hospitality is another area. Now, maybe that's starting to come back, but maybe they haven't got the money to spend, perhaps that they have had in the past. Entertainment. Charities, I'm going to talk some more about charities in a bit, but charities have really been suffering, I think, generally. Print newspapers, again, maybe it's an acceleration of what was already happening, but there's ups and downs. And my question is, who in your organisation is actively thinking about this now? Who are the ups? Who are the downs? What doors should we be knocking on? And in addition to the winners and the losers, a question for you: do we also now have heroes and villains? Certainly, in recent years, I've been saying to people, well, you know what? Customer loyalty is dead. You just don't see customer loyalty anymore. But maybe that's changed. You know, are we going to remember the people who really helped through all this, you know, the Pret-a-Manger, the Langhams, you know, a famous 150-year-old restaurant in London who did amazing things to help NHS and key workers. Boots the chemist. There's a list of them, aren't they, of people, companies. Oh, I know the other one, Burberry, who totally transformed their production to start making gowns and masks and so on. So are we going to remember them, and are we going to start wanting to do business with them because those people have demonstrated that the values they have in their company are real? And equally, there's the villains, aren't there? You know, Weatherspoons perhaps, and Virgin come to mind, and one or two others. Where are we going to have a white list and a black list in terms of who we're going to deal with, either to sell to or to buy from? Question mark. So again, I think at that point, I'd like to go over to you. Is that all an ode of nonsense? What do you think?
Roger, can I just flag, Jeremy Cole, who's on the call, hopefully still, was asking a question in the Q&A. Jeremy, I don't know if you can unmute and just ask your question, or even put your video on and show us your lovely face. But if not, I'll read you. Ah, here he is. Hi, Jeremy. You're on mute still, Jeremy, I think.
I'm unmuting you. Oh, no, I can't. No. You have to unmute yourself in the bottom left-hand corner, I think, Jeremy. No?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Okay. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi. Yeah, it was just a question for you. I mean, my observation is that pandemics, a bit like wars, accelerate trends that were happening anyway.
Yep, indeed.
So things that have changed in the last 3 to 6 months were already happening, like virtual meetings, working from home, etc. And maybe what's happened in the last 5 months would have happened in 5 to 10 years. So it's been accelerated.
Yeah.
However, this may be a somewhat old-fashioned view, but I think some of those changes have been driven by tech companies with a degree of self-interest, and some of them, hopefully when a vaccine is available, some of them I think don't necessarily or shouldn't necessarily be adopted permanently. And in particular in business, I think face-to-face communication is vital. Certainly areas like staff, and I think it would be a shame if there was a kind of general assumption that all the changes over the last 4 or 5 generally. Be interested to hear your views as to whether you think there is some merit in considering which of those accelerated changes are worthy of retaining, and which should perhaps we should pause and just think, actually, was that driven by technology, or is it genuinely a benefit to business or society?
I think it's a very valid point, Jeremy, and we certainly don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And as you say, I think we have got to, and it's us, and this is the point I keep making, it's got to be CEOs, it's got to be the main board, it's got to be the top team, because if no one else can decide but them, I think, in terms of deciding to change permanently practices and procedures. And they've got to be thought through carefully. As Richard said, you know, you can't just get rid of 9 to 5 in a manufacturing environment, for example. You can't do that. So it's got to be thought through logically, and then a decision taken one way or the other. I guess I've got 2 sides here. On the one hand, we mustn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. On the other hand, we mustn't miss the opportunity to move ourselves forward. And I think it's those 2 things that we've got to do, and we need to put some time and effort into it, in my opinion.
Thank you.
So what about companies, blacklists and whitelists, everyone? What do you reckon? Or will we just go back where we were? No. No response. Okay, listen, no problem. So let me now move to the next section, and I'll be honest with you, this is a little bit of a rant, firstly, on my apologies, so a little bit of a rant. Academia. I am very cross with universities. The universities have been whinging about the fact that probably their overseas students aren't going to come back. They've been whinging about, you know, they're going to run out of money. Some of them have certainly adopted online. But there's just something else that doesn't seem to have been considered, much more revolution than evolution, but I think it should happen. When I got my degree, I did what was known in those days as a thin sandwich course. Doesn't exist anymore, but basically I was sponsored to do an honours degree in my case, mechanical engineering, by a company. And every year I spend 6 months at university and then 6 months in the company. And what is really pertinent is in the 6 months I spent at university, I actually spent 20 weeks at university. Question. If you look at universities today, almost all of them have 3 8-week terms. That's 18 weeks in a year. And I think I've got that right. Let me make sure my notes are correct. Yeah. So they have 24 weeks in a year. So a 3-year course is 72 weeks. Why? And maybe I've missed something. Can we not now change to a 2-year course? You'd then have 36 weeks, academic weeks in a year. That still leaves an awful lot out of 52 to go on holiday and do other things. And if we move to a 2-year university degree course, it would save the university significant money. It would mean student debt drop like a stone. Why not do it? And then why at the same time why not make it hybrid of online as well as face-to-face? So that's my little rant. I'm not expecting you to respond, but I just feel a bit annoyed with them. And then the other one I just wanted to mention was charities, and that's a whole different thing. I'm worried about charities. Charities have the money stopped coming in, and I work with quite a lot of charities, and surely what charities need to be doing now is making it easy for people to give them money. You know, in terms of us as individuals, we've all got used to using our credit cards now and not using cash. We're almost at a cashless society. You know, we need to be able to pay contactless. We need to be able to pay by 1 or 2 strokes of our phone. I was intrigued, the Hut Group I mentioned earlier, Mark Moulding, the CEO, runs that business, 4.5 billion flotation, from his smartphone. The entire business he runs from his smartphone. So if I'm minded to think about him wanting to donate, let's say personally to a charity, he'll want to do it from his smartphone using no more than 1 or 2 keystrokes. And probably even if he wanted his company to sponsor a charity, the same thing applies. Everything I hear from speaking to charities that holds them back from getting on with this are the trustees who are very risk averse. And I think they've got to release them and they've got to get moving. And just go to a local university and say, you know, we'd like to be able to do this. They love real life projects. Right, that's the end of my little rant. Anyone want to respond to any of that nonsense I've just been speaking?
Can I just say, Roger, if you can hear me and
I can
see me now. Yeah, apologies to everyone. I think because we've set the call up in webinar mode, you can't. I don't think you can turn your videos on, and I think we're struggling a little bit to therefore get spontaneous in internet world, at least spontaneous responses. So apologies, we'll fix that for next time. But more importantly, for the moment, if you want to make a comment or ask a question, could you just unmute yourself, which I'm sure you can do, witness the previous participants, and just bludgeon in with a comment, because it's a lot easier than trying to
Thank you, Steve.
Raise your hand when we can't see you, or raise your hand metaphorically.
Can anyone hear me at all?
Yeah, yes. There we go. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Hello, it's Richard again, Roger.
Hi, Richard.
I share your last 2 points. I have 3 sons. 2 of them went to university. Both of them, one of them just finished a degree in biology, did quite well, got 2-1. His finals were online, 24-hour exams online, very strange.
Wow.
In Manchester. So rather than going from 3 hours, it was 24 hours. But the 2 sons that went to university, both of them started costing how much per hour was lectures. And yeah, they're both fuming, really. Value for money.
Not value for money, is it?
No. And time. I mean,
and in our world, it wouldn't be allowed.
Absolutely. I like you. I did a thick sandwich degree. I was sponsored. Yeah, my 3rd son, 2 of them actually twins. He's done an apprenticeship. Oh, he's in the middle of an apprenticeship, and he's doing fantastic. He's just buying his first house.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think universities have got to wake up.
Absolutely.
Somewhere has definitely got to change it, because university degrees are really not going to be worth the time and the money that it's costing the young people today. But conversely, coming to your charities, because my son Ryan, who's just buying his first house, of course, he can't afford everything brand new. So we've been going to the charity shops. And since they've opened, the YMCA, people are donating furniture, and they've been sold on the same day.
Really?
Oh, seriously. And, you know, my wife and I, we've been going to the charity shops on his behalf whilst he's working to get a settee. You see one coming in the morning, it's gone in the afternoon. Wow. So I think in terms of donating, rather than just money, if you're clearing your house, having a house,
good point.
If you donate, there's a lot of people out there, the housing market's booming, first-time buyers, you know, certainly the furniture side, particularly those like the YMCA, you can get very good products, you're helping the charity, and it's all part of the recycling.
Yep, good point.
So I do share your views on both that.
Thank you very much. Anybody else, please?
Me again. Can you hear me?
Susan, yes, indeed.
Hi. It's Sue again. Yeah, I agree with what you said and what's just been said about uni and academia. And I'm in a very similar position. I've also got 3 children, one of whom started uni, didn't finish, disengaged, and was kind of allowed to fall through the cracks, if you like. Yeah. Middle one was, I was going to say lucky, but actually that word doesn't apply. Middle one managed to engineer an offer with one of the big accountancy firms and get sponsored and, work at the same time as do chartered accountancy. Tick the box, worked well. And my youngest did a 4-year course in Manchester and was in her final year this year. And during the pandemic, it felt as if everything disappeared. And actually, I was reading coursework and exam entries and having to, because the theoretical business world and the real business world are 2 different things. Yeah. So I was, I was having to read the papers she was producing, disagree with it, go online, find out what I should be thinking, because it's what the academics said, not my business experience, and then support her that way. But honestly, in terms of value for money in those last few months, there was nothing. There was nothing. Furthermore, I'm confused. So like I'm sure everybody on the call, I've started businesses. I've been involved with starting, building, exit. I was one of only 3 female brand presidents in a global company where there were 23 brand presidents. So I've done okay, and I didn't have a degree. And at the moment, I'm self-employed, but I'm also looking at opportunities, and the amount of opportunities that are still quoting, you must have a degree to be able to do this job. And I'm just, It needs a rethink. It needs a rethink. Experience has got to be worth something.
I agree again with everything you've said, Susan. Gosh, in no way do I want to get political, but a certain Tony Blair, I think, did everyone a disservice when he said those years ago that, what was it, 50% of the population ought to have a degree, and suddenly apprentices disappeared and that whole sector disappeared, and it was so wrong. You know, I've got a classic car I work on and so on. And I'm so excited to see, there's not far from here, there's a place called Bicester Heritage where they've turned an old airfield into a centre for classic cars and classic planes. So every type of trade you can imagine. But what they've also opened up last year is a training centre for young people to learn the skills. And they've now got 30 apprentices learning all those traditional skills that they can use. And I just think that's magnificent. University degrees aren't appropriate to them, and certainly ending up with a massive debt isn't appropriate to them, indeed, if it's appropriate to anybody at all.
Also, just on that, Roger, on apprenticeships.
Richard, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's just like to throw it in, because if we're going to have a system where apprentices are going to come back, working in the company has been fantastic. But the academic side, where it's a day release in the week, the companies who have been set up to offer the academic side, they've been dreadful.
Really?
Absolutely dreadful. His company, quite successful up here in Yorkshire. And the first academic company, which it wasn't a university, it wasn't a college, it's a company set up with people to educate the theory side. He's doing electrical engineering. Spent a year, and in the end, the company had to ditch them. And I think there might be private enterprises who are getting government money to set up this training. So even the apprenticeships, and I've heard it from a few people where companies are doing their bit, but the partnering academic side have let them down. So it's 4-year apprenticeship. He's got to squeeze now 4 years into 2 years of his sort of the academic side. Yeah, to finish his apprenticeship. So even that's not quite working properly.
Okay, right. We've had our bit of a rant. I guess we ought to get back to.
Roger, can I just, sorry to interrupt, Roger.
Certainly.
We are having some technical issues about people coming on who want to make a point, which I know you're keen to facilitate. Can I just ask Kate Jones, if you can hear me, Kate, because I know you've been trying, I think, to get involved. Right, now, so Kate's there. Kate apparently can't unmute Roger. I think you need to unmute her.
Really? Let me.
No, I can, Stephen.
Oh,
I got you. Hello, Kate.
I got a little flag up that said the host would like to unmute you, and then I had the option to accept or get the garlic out and say no.
Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really enjoying the conversation. It's fantastic. I would like, if it's okay, I would like to hijack us back to one of the very first points
please
you were
do.
making.
Please do.
You were talking about the 9 to 5 and being present in the office and that sort of thing, and I appreciate everything you said and agree with a lot of it. I have a concern, just a minor one, that as employers we need to be thinking about. And it's a terribly overused and bandied about phrase, but the mental health and well-being of our staff. There are some.
Yes.
I'm an exec coach, and I work with leaders across all sorts of sectors. And one of the things I'm noticing with my clients at the moment is there's a real split between those that are enjoying, able, capable to work at home, and those that are missing the point. I think one of the other participants mentioned, I think it was Ben mentioned, that there was those that were ingrained with the company got the culture. Newer members of staff didn't, because they didn't have the same degree of exposure. And I make up that is partly down to the coffee machine conversations, the having lunch together, that the camaraderie and the creativity that comes from being in the same physical space. And the other thing I've noticed is that there are those that don't actually physically have the space to have an office at home. They're sitting at the kitchen table or the dining room. They don't have strong broadband connections. And I think we need to just be mindful. I love the work I do lends itself to working anywhere in the world, actually, with this technical support that we have, webinars, Zoom, Teams. I'm really lucky. But I have seen people struggling, not just emotionally and mentally, but also practically, to do the working from home thing. And I just think I don't want us to lose sight of it, I guess.
Kate, you're absolutely right. And I think I would also add to that, let's be blunt. If you're in for example, an abusive relationship, or you have particular difficulties at home, actually, work is where you escape to. You don't want to work at home. You don't want to spend any more time at home. And, again, it's a minority of people, I guess, but we must be mindful of all this. I absolutely agree with you. And I think all these things we're talking about today, it certainly isn't one size fits all, and it isn't black and white. It's got to be appropriate. Again, I just was reminded, my daughter-in-law is a clinical psychologist in Australia, and I was speaking to her on Zoom the other day. And she's been working right the way through the pandemic, and she works in the area of pain. And I've been saying to her, how was that going, in terms of doing it online rather than it was all face-to-face before. And she says it's really been interesting because for a lot of people, they prefer the online activity or by phone. Because it's less embarrassing. And she said, particularly with men, she said, that's what I've observed. Men prefer not to have the face-to-face often. So we've just got to be mindful of everybody, and we've got to make sure, I think, that we don't say the rule is this, whether the rule is 9 to 5 or the rule is you work from home. We've got to have some flexibility here, whilst at the same time being able to run our businesses successfully, because if we don't do that, we're all in trouble.
Yes, lovely. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else poised out there? Okay. Okay. If not, let's just move on to the final section. It's 10 to 10, and as I suggested, said at the beginning, this chat's all very fine, but really at the end of the day, what I want is you and your businesses to be more successful. That's all I'm interested in. And therefore, what about your plans? What are you actually going to do as a result of what we've gone through, maybe one or two of the things we've talked about this morning? We've just been talking about the whole 9 to 5, the working from home and all that. What are you actually going to do to set the scene for the future for your business? And I think nothing cannot be an option, frankly, nor can it be something that you delegate. I think this is so important. It needs discussing on the top table, whatever the top table is. Next after that, for me, is the top line, is your sales. None of us have been through a situation like this before, where suddenly nothing's coming in. For most of us, not everybody, but suddenly there's no income coming in at all. We've got through that, but we're now in a position where we need to be able to start getting that income back. Most of us are in a position where we can start doing that again. And that's this word prospecting. And what do I mean by prospecting? I mean, very simply, metaphorically, or even physically, knocking on the doors of people who've got money, who might want to buy what you've got to sell. The skills to do that. Question, have you got those skills? Have your salespeople, have you personally actually been through the right sort of sales and marketing training, basic sales training, to be able to do that, to ask for the order? This is really basic stuff, but I think it's coming to the absolute fore of at the front of what we all need to be doing. And when you're knocking on those doors of people who've got money, what is it you're going to sell to them? I do not believe you can assume you're going to try and sell to them what you used to be trying to sell to them pre-pandemic. Maybe their needs are totally different. Maybe, again, you need to take some time out in, I'm famous for my helicopter, getting in your helicopter and looking at the big picture. Maybe you need to stand back and say, okay, what are the needs of our customers now? Because those customers have gone through everything we've gone through. They're having the same sort of debate that we're having today. What do I need to sell them? You know, for example, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she's a speaker, but she's always specialized in stress in the workplace. And I was saying to her, I think you ought to change that. I think you ought to be talking about anxiety, because all of us have gone through massive anxiety and continue to go through, whether it's relations, catching the virus, whether we're going to have jobs at the end of this, lots and lots and lots of anxiety. And maybe one of the things that would really, really help businesses would be for her to be going in and running sessions dealing with anxiety. You've got to decide how you're going to do that to meet with the rules. I mean, I'm finding in what I do, I'm not speaking at conferences again now, but I am now doing workshops of top teams of 10, 12, 15 people who are isolated. I'm getting bookings to do that because, interestingly, one or two have said to me, we've got Zoom fatigue. We actually want to see face-to-face work again. And I think all that needs thinking through. So it's really helicopter stuff. What is it we're going to sell and who are we going to sell it to? Because it should be based on what they need. Have we got the sales and marketing skills? What about our values? You know, increasingly people, firstly, I think, increasingly people were only going to, start again. Increasingly, we want to buy from people whose values we share. I was saying that before the pandemic. I think that's even more the case now because we've seen where people's values maybe aren't what they said they were. Are your values clear? Do you walk the talk of those values? And now's the time to get that sorted, and the culture that goes with those values. And I think the last part for me in this plan, I think whether it's, to be honest, the country, but let's just talk business, we now need outstanding leadership, because we are talking about perhaps revolution rather than evolution. Have you personally got the skills you need? If you haven't, go and get them. Are you thinking more about your leadership and your leadership style to make sure you're really nailing all the things that you ought to be nailing, bearing in mind all the things that happen to your people and to your business? And then I'll just finish by saying, if I were you, after today, I would be setting a 10-day plan. What am I going to do in the next 10 days? What am I going to do in the next 10 weeks? What am I going to do in the next 10 months in terms of all these things we're talking about? What are we actually going to nail? And I'd like you to do one last thing, which is please write down no more than 2 sentences of exactly where you would like your business to be in 3 years' time. Because I'm a believer, if you don't decide where it is you're trying to get to, you stand very little chance of getting there. So that's sort of my lot. That's the end of me speaking. So really, over to you. Any closing things that you'd like to say, comments, questions, whatever. Right. How many are still there? We've still got 28 people there.
Yeah, we never know how many people have left it on in the background, Roger. But
is that what it is?
but I do hope that still having 28 people on is a positive sign. Yeah. So thank you all very much. Sorry for the technical glitches here and there. We'll try to address those for next time, so that it's easier to get the participation sorted. But hopefully, generally, you feel it's another example of K. Johnson G helping you and your clients build a better business.
Could I add to that?
Yeah, please do, Roger, please.
If I may, I would really love to see you face to face. I'm running a real life face to face masterclass with Kay Johnson G in February. It's a half day, so please, I'd love to see you there.
And spookily enough, Roger, that is exactly what I was just going to promote. February the 11th, 2021, subject to how the world is in terms of physical get-togethers, of course, between now and then. It's a long way away, but details will come out by the normal means, and it would be, I think I've been lucky enough to go to some outdoor events recently, football and music, in fact, and there's a feeling of euphoria, I think, when people actually manage to get together as a group at the moment in any shape or form, because of the inability to do so. There's quite a release, so I'm fully expecting that our first physical masterclass will be a very emotional occasion with tears and tantrums. I'm certainly hoping so, even if that's just me. But anyway, so that's the next physical one. The next online masterclass is with Michael Finnegan as presenter on September the 23rd. You should have had the details on it, and please register. If you don't have the details, just let us know and we'll let you have them. Only remains for me to say two things. First of all, a big thank you to Roger for this morning. That was excellent. A bigger thank you to you all for joining in, listening in, and taking part. Without you here, of course, it would have been a much lesser event. And as always, I'll finish by saying that if you enjoyed this event, we are Kay Johnson G, and if you didn't, we're KPMG. Thank you all very much, and take care of yourselves.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Roger, if you can hear me.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.